I'm learning a lot myself, especially when it comes to this whole Black banking and
Right.
business sector, things that I never knew, and especially with this chapter, especially how it starts out. In the first page, you see where she says she's talking about the New Deal, how it changed America's legal and political landscape. And the first thing she says that glaringly stood out to me was the bulk of the New Deal reforms can accurately be described as white affirmative action
Yeah,
because
yeah,
state resources were used to provide direct financial advantages to white Americans at the expense of other racial groups.
yeah, yeah. But I
So,
never. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying though, because like when you hear about the New Deal and they talk in such glowing terms about it, and it seemed like it was great, and it was great, you know. But
For
like
them.
we didn't see it. We didn't see that.
Right.
I didn't, and I had, and you know, based on the history books that I was learning from in my textbooks, it was always looked at in glowing terms, but from their perspective. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I'm like, wow. And you know, that be the basis of a lot of their arguments, you know, and talking about how you're supposed to lift yourself up from your bootstraps. And I'm like, well, all right. Every time we do, it's another impediment to our progress. And you don't
Mhm.
want to sound like you don't want to be like, you know, because you want to instill that in your children. Look, you can do anything you want. You know, it's things out there you can do to, to progress. And then you look at all this stuff that they did to impede that progress, and it's like, wow, man, come
Mhm.
on, man. And I,
And it's absolutely true because it even though he knew Roosevelt knew that people of all races needed this help basically because of the depression.
right,
Um they specifically worked to craft those laws to be exclusionary so
man,
that none of the black people benefited from those social welfare programs,
yeah,
as well as they wanted to make sure that the black laborers in the South maintained an
right,
inferior status.
inferior status. Yep,
And
that
then
what
I
they
think,
call it, that caucus, the Southern Caucus, the
right,
Democrats, mind you, the Southern Democrat Caucus, mind you.
hmm
You know what I mean? They the ones that little small minority wielded a lot of influence on the decision
hmm
making.
hmm and I
Yeah.
think that the white guy from Florida, Representative James Mark Wilcox, said it best when he said, "You cannot put the Negro and the white man on the same basis and get away with it." And that's
Right.
new. They knew that at the
Yeah,
time, and from the
you're looking
South,
for
right?
trouble. You're looking for trouble.
Right. That's what he was basically telling the legislature, like, try it if you want to, and see what happens.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
You know, those pages made me mad because it was like, every break and every cut and every, advantage of the system y'all say we take advantage of, they were created for you. They were used by you. Everything was for you.
Hmm
Right.
And if all of a sudden now it's over stereotype that we're the ones milking the system, getting the benefit from it, you kept us out of the system.
Thank
hmm
That
you.
New Deal could have helped us, a heck of a lot, but you excluded farmer. Well, we know black farmers and I forgot the other word because it's not in my front of my face, but yeah, it was just crazy. I didn't think America would work so hard.
Man,
Well, yes, I
they put a
did.
lot of effort. They put a lot of effort into this.
hmm A lot.
But
Woo. I mean, wow. It's like, what? Come on, man.
Yeah, a
Talking about
lot.
in the other groups like the Polish and the Italians and how they was discriminated against. But because they was able to move into those white communities without the backlash, you know,
hmm
and the length that they went to keep those red lines as rigid as possible, to
Right.
even go so far as to build a wall. They're gonna
Oh
build a
yeah.
wall.
Oh yeah. To build a wall. That was insane to me. But guess what? They still have that philosophy today.
They still to this day. And Trump know that though. He know. He know. That's what I'm saying, man. Trump ain't stupid, man. Man, he know the white top 10 grievance list. and he play that same playlist over and over. He know it. He
Right.
learned that. Yeah.
You
So
know,
it's
the other
a
thing I think was interesting too when they touched on when they started talking about this was the time of the formation of the of the union movement.
right.
And you remember we had no place in that movement, no
Right.
worker protections, no nothing. And white Americans benefited from it, which the mob and mafia went on to exploit, in their
Exploit.
criminal enterprises. But it's just crazy. We couldn't win um on the home ownership. We couldn't win on being able to establish the black businesses. We couldn't win on being able to establish the black banks. And we couldn't even win on our own protection as workers in the
Yeah.
industrial age.
Right.
And they actually made it worse because I think when they said the workers were on strike, we were
They sent
caused to
us in
go
the
in.
gas. Yeah.
Yeah,
They
they
sent us
replaced us, and then
in.
so they made us the face of them losing their jobs.
Right.
Right,
Right.
right.
And yeah. That's
That
that's
is very true.
that's amazing. I mean, man, it's man is
It's the same blueprint, the same playbook, because they do that now when they
right.
say Mexicans are going to take your job.
Yeah, right. They got it. They give you an enemy.
Exactly.
They give you an enemy, and that they give you an enemy, and then they go with it. They did the same thing with the Arabs and the terrorism. And I used to
Hmm.
tell cats, I'm like, man, because my the barbershop I worked at before I got my own shop, we was like, it was an historically all white neighborhood. It's like where my barbershop is, you couldn't even ride your bike past like a certain viaduct. And
Mm.
so now all those white people, the Arabs got a store in their neighborhood now, and they depend on that Arab store. And it's a lot of disenfranchised and disgruntled
Whoa.
white people, right? And I'm
Okay.
gonna tell you, I done
All
seen a
right.
lot of poor folk.
Coming up a
I
little
done
bit.
seen a lot of poor folk.
Listen.
Hmm.
White poor people is something you gotta see. Listen here. Yeah. And I was telling
Right.
cats in the barbershop, I'm like, yo, y'all worried about Arab cats. I'm like, it's these white boys in these motorcycle clubs around here. That's who y'all need to be worried about.
Right.
And it's all coming to fruition now. That's where all the
Hmm.
domestic terrorism and violence is coming from. And that's a big thing that they still downplay a
That's very
lot.
true. Very
Yeah.
true. The domestic terrorism, as they keep the uh, department, the U.S.
Yeah.
Department of Homeland Security keeps saying
And
that the domestic terrorism from the white supremacists
that's like the
is
number
the
one
highest threat.
problem.
Right, it's the
Yeah.
highest threat. But y'all keep trying to push
Downplaying.
these outside external forces when they're not, they're not even a threat. It's
And they
insane.
Yeah, and they call them, and they always a lone wolf. I'm like, they not a lone wolf. They is on forums on these
Hmm.
on forums with gang of
It's
people with this.
let me let me tell you, if you when y'all get an opportunity, because Alan, you just said that, and I wanted to plug this. I just watched it yesterday. When you get an opportunity, there is a movie on Netflix called The Hater. Okay. Now, it's a Polish film and it has subtitles, but watch that movie and let me know what you
Oh,
think about it, because that is exactly what it's all about: the disinformation in the chat rooms and the
yeah,
promoting of memes that are untrue, and the hate and the result that comes about. It's a really, really good movie. Really
called
good
the
movie.
hater.
Yeah,
The
The
hate.
Hater on Netflix.
Cool.
Yep. Frankie,
Hey,
she's out walking the dog.
yeah, is
We've
my
missed
volume on?
you.
Can you hear me? Can you
Yeah,
hear
we
me?
can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, no, I was I just finished up my this course I was taking, and it was like the first time I've been back in school in like 30 years, and I was really trying to do good because it was paid for by my job, and if I didn't get an A or a B, they were going to take the money out my check. So yeah. So yeah, I had to really concentrate on that. So my last class was Tuesday. So I'm back.
Yay, Frankie's back.
What's up,
Yeah,
Frank?
I wasn't about to have, hey, how you doing? I wasn't about to have them take no money out my check. It's already enough coming out of there.
Right.
So I got a 98.18 and I'm really proud of myself.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm really, really, really proud of myself because, after, being educated in Oakland public schools, I wasn't too sure how I was going to do in a college class.
You're silly. And I think we're missing Nandi because she had to take her GRE today.
Yeah. She took it today. Wow.
Yeah, she took it today to get into the doctoral program. So yeah, everyone has a lot of stuff going on outside.
What's a GRE?
So remember when we all had to end up taking the SAT and the ACT and the stuff that doesn't matter to determine how you get into school? That is the graduate equivalent. Yeah. It has no bearings on how you're going to perform in college, but they always have to give us some type of hurdle.
Yeah, some standardized tests that some of the questions, I know that with the SAT, some of those questions, it's culturally based. So how are you going to know?
Right.
Like I wouldn't have known anything about anything to do with the names of the different positions for people who row on a crew team or whatever it's called.
Oh, yeah. Here's Nandi. She's popping in.
SAT. Talk to her.
Yeah.
Hey, Nandi, when did you take the SAT, ma'am?
No, Nandi.
Yeah.
We were just talking about you. I was telling them you had to take you might not come because you were busy with the GRE today.
So. Oh, God.
How'd it go?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it was.
Oh, Lord. You should do good. You've been all over the world.
Girl, that just ain't got nothing to do with that. that has nothing to do with real intelligence. It has to do with, do you know how to take this test? Man. It's just designed to trick and confuse, and it's 4 hours straight with a 10-minute break. And it's just,
that's horrible.
Y'all just knocking on my feelings, and I don't appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I thought those tests were necessary to show how much smarter you were than everybody else.
No, ma'am.
Excuse me.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
You know what, though? I will have to beg to differ on that one because I know plenty of college graduates that I look at and think, what the hell? I should have a doctorate degree compared to these people.
Like President Trump, but he paid people to take
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's at a vocabulary level of like, I'd have to say third grade. I would say you gave him a little extra.
I would say even lower than that. My 4-year-old daughter's vocabulary is higher than his. So I put it below that bar.
No, but I mean, testing, standardized tests, I guess, are to place people at certain levels to know where they need to improve or succeed at. But the thing is, not everybody's a good test taker, and I didn't realize that till later. But I am a good test taker, and so it didn't bother me. But I didn't realize a lot of people learn differently. And so I got
very true.
When I started falling behind, and I was like, oh hell no, wait a minute. Why was this so easy in high school? But not now.
All right, I'm gonna guide us back to being pissed off at white people now. Because we didn't talk about testing. All right, so no, I'm joking.
It's okay.
The
you got a lot to be pissed for. Right.
So the chapter talks about the progressive banking reform and the home loans and mortgages that were created for the loan agencies, the Homeowners Loan Corporation, the Federal Home Loan Banks, the Federal National Mortgage, the Federal Housing Administration, and also
Oh,
included in the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to disseminate low cost credit to new homeowners, right? So this was basically what they were tasked with for the post war economic growth. Okay. Then she goes on to say that it ended up creating the robust homeowning capital, creating predominantly for the white middle class, and made the black ghetto a permanent feature of the 20th century.
mm.
That was just, I mean, I don't know.
But what did it was they were saying how they was basically making the same amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff we had to pay, everything was so much more. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's crazy, man. It's every time we go back into it, it's just it's frustrating and
It's
it's
frustrating because the things are still happening today.
right, right. It's like they what they say with 2,500. I think it was making somebody was making it was like you what was they saying about how the rent went? It was like you was paying more to rent than they
Mm-hmm.
was paying for like a mortgage to
Same thing
own.
today.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's like, wow, it's
Mm-hmm.
brutal. It's diabolical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very true. And then with the redlining,
right. That's man.
just and how they use the roads and bridges that bifurcated the neighborhoods.
Man, yeah, we
Um,
talked about that too. 'Cause
right.
they did that in Buffalo too. It was like the older generation, they talk about how one side of the like when they made the expressway right down the middle, and it was I didn't get it when they was talking about it because they was talking about actually filling it back up so they could connect the neighborhood again, and everybody was against it because it's like that generation is basically dying now. And what sense would it make? And I never really understood their argument. And this book, in the chapters that we read so far, is helping me understand their argument because it literally decimated the community. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And it was like, you don't realize how much it affected it because you didn't see it yourself. It
Right.
greatly affected because the stopped buying here and started buying there, spending their money outside the community, and that money never really came back. And even all of the futile attempts that they attempt to build back in the community, it still seemed like, I'd rather go where I've been going than to come back and do it like this because the old restaurants is not there or the sense of community is not there no more. And
Right.
but you don't realize. I mean, that's why I like 'em- that's what I like about what I'm getting out this book. But at the same time, it's just frustrating and it hurts. It hurts to hear the direct result of some of these policies that they put forth and still try and implement in different
Right.
ways in a different language today.
Well,
But
That's very
I'm
true.
I'm starting to think that, like, especially with redlining, that they even, it wasn't just like they picked the neighborhoods they wanted to redline. Like if it was a predominantly immigrant neighborhood, they didn't really care about those, because I know that the neighborhood I grew up in was all immigrants, before, in like the early 1900s, and then like in the 30s and 40s and 50s, we had a lot of black homeowners, and then after that it became a ghetto after. But they didn't have a problem with letting black ownership happen in that neighborhood, and I believe it was because it was predominantly immigrants. There weren't like just like, but then you look at Piedmont, which is just a few miles away in the same city, but has a different name, but it's within the same city of Oakland. And that was predominantly white, and black people could not own homes there.
Right.
But you just go a few miles closer to, a few miles further into the flatlands where it was all immigrants that it came over on boats, and they didn't care about that. it's like they already had predetermined which areas they were going to let eventually turn into ghettos, where they were going to build public housing and stuff. They had that predetermined before, you know, I'd say decades before it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Come
90?
Come on, Kiwi. Come on.
Yes.
You look quiet, hun.
Yeah, I'm quiet. I'm quiet. The points that you were making stood out to me too. You know, it's kind of depressing in a way sometimes. I find the information on certain days, it kind of weighs me down almost. You know, I feel weighed down by it because you kind of you know when you are informing yourself and you kind of want to feel like, you know, by getting this information you can affect some kind of change, or that if you can find out enough information you can understand it or understand why you're in the condition you're in. And I feel like I get a greater level of understanding, but I don't know what the solution is to turn things around within America. And given the you know, the recent COVID thing and just the whole kind of, you know, kind of sci-fi crazy vibe of walking around, you know, if you're safe, you know, this kind of, you know, just this dominating fear that's being sent out across the globe in a sense of even human contact. And I just wonder, you know, not that that relates directly to this book, but it relates to the climate and the culture that we're living in that is exacerbating issues like race. You know what I mean? If you have an issue that's big like race, then what are we going to do to uplift or be at a kind of a more of a median level in terms of our positioning in America? And then you're adding in all this other stuff that's just like, you're just like, this is a lot. You know what I mean?
We need something uplifting.
Right. Because there's so much greed, and I don't know how you know, all I can do is, I guess, is be the change people say you want to see, right? So I try to have my own energy be one of being hopeful and being positive and trying to like be what I'm giving out. But at the same time, it's like there's so much power in this system of lies and confusion that's been laid out. And this targeting of, you know, because it runs all the way down, not just from Black people, but really any person of color. And the targeting goes all the way down the level. And ours is just so extreme because we have, I guess, the most color. And so you just get kind of discouraged, you know? I get discouraged sometimes by the information because I went to a celebration for Hanukkah at a friend of mine, a coworkers had like a little party, and I didn't know that part of the theme was to celebrate her Jewish heritage in Hanukkah, and she was explaining some of the, you know, tenets about it and information and why they like the candles and all of that. And so she lit a candle and sang a song to start off, you know, the celebration, and she had made some traditional foods for it. And I could appreciate, you know, what I was learning, and that I hadn't seen this, you know, heard this song or been involved in some kind of like little celebration kind of ceremony like this before. But at the end of it, it was funny because my brother went with me and we had the same thought later, which was, he was like, I felt a little bit salty. He was like, you know what I mean? Because he was like, we don't have that. You know what I mean? We don't have a song or a lighting we don't really know, you know? And I wonder, you know, even when you talk about, you know, why can't the Black community come together, or our lack of cohesion? It's like, well, how can we when we really don't truly know who we are? We really don't. They're slaves, then we were Negroes, then we were colored. Now we're African American. Some of us are Blacks. And so it's like, but none of those are really an identity for us, because if Africa is a huge continent, you know, and even that downplays how much of us are mixed with Caucasian nationalities or Native American to an extent that we don't even know, because we're just trying to figure out the big pieces. So we're not even thinking about how much we might be Native American or what, because we've all just been labeled a color. Now we're totally confused. You know what I mean? And we've been given Christianity, and I'm not saying that Christianity isn't wonderful for some people, but that we know, I think a lot of us in our core, that we don't really know our answers in terms of how we would be living. What are our cultural values? Really, we have, I think, an intrinsic piece of knowledge of some of it, right? That just comes with being on earth and what you get from your genes, but we really don't know. And so then for there to be this constant still attack on not wanting us to be able to live out just like our best human existence that we get one of. The fact that so many of us just get our chance to be human just cut off by someone who's angry and hateful for we really still don't even know why. You know, it just kind of disheartens me sometimes. And maybe that's the fallout of that GRE that I just took today. if you catch me tomorrow, I might have a slightly different vibe.
Girl, you gave us some real words then. Like seriously, that. Ooh. Maybe you shouldn't look. I'm gonna save this so you can include that in the book. That should be your introduction.
I don't know if you I don't know if you've thought about this, but every word that you use to describe like what Black people or African Americans have been called or what they were thought of.
Lottery.
I know she got her. Do it, girl.
No, I won $5. I won $5.
Oh, nice.
I need my $5. Shoot. But every word, what I was saying was every word is from somebody on the outside and how they're viewing you. You know what I mean? Like it's their description of you. It's their label for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not your own.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I honestly believe that the majority of white people believe that Africa is a country and not a continent. I do believe it. I swear to God, I believe it.
I mean, I know myself that I lack knowledge on Africa in terms of, you know, but I just, you know.
Even the maps, you guys know that all the maps are wrong, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That there is a certain map, I forgot the name of it, but there is a certain map that is correct. And the ones that we use are not correct.
Yeah, all of them make Africa as the continent
smaller than
smaller.
it is.
Yeah,
right.
When
it's actually huge.
See how big it
right.
is.
A lot smaller.
Right. So, and make the United States look so much bigger.
Right. Dang, 90, I don't even know where to go after that sermon.
Sorry.
But no,
that's
to piggyback,
put me on the spot.
I know. To piggyback on what you were saying though, it's very true that you just don't know what to make of all of it. When you sit here and read stuff like this, like understanding that the policies that have been were pushed in order to promote generational wealth inequality. These policies are the reasons why we have inadequate education in our neighborhoods, inadequate health care, just our overall quality of life is not equal to, you know, our white counterparts. And it's crazy how they could see how these policies would work. And I question myself about whether or not they knew how this would become such a long-standing effect when they put these things into place. Was that their overall goal? Did they know how many years this cycle was going to continue on down the line?
You don't want to believe that people could be that fundamentally evil, just evil. But I think they might be.
They probably exceeded expectations.
Right.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Right.
You are absolutely right.
They're like, wow, this worked really well.
That other book we read, the other book we read, the one where it had was it lynchers? The guy, the slave guy,
the person
created the system.
Right. The
Yes, the
Willie
curse
Lynch
of Willie
book.
Lynch. He wanted this to last for centuries. He even said it. If you do this, this will last for centuries. And so everything they do, they just keep doing it. And like you said, I think it exceeded expectations, but they wanted it to last this long.
Right.
Crazy.
It is very crazy. Um, one of the other things I was looking at is let me see if I can find it. Oh, when it was talking about one of the things we find ourselves trapped in when it's talking about the lack of credit that's available to Black people, and how we're charged higher interest on new loans, which still happens today.
Right.
Uh, that the debt makes it harder to accumulate more wealth, basically. So you're caught within a debt wealth cycle that is basically feeding on itself. And even though like you were saying before, Alan, when she talks about how the Black middle class was making the same as the white middle class, but had much less wealth, which is the same disparity
Right.
today, right? And then it was also saying that we were not buying more than whites, just paying much more for the same amount
Right.
of household goods,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And then when it started talking about the installment loans, and I'm like, man, that is still rampant in the Black community today, where people going to rent a center and
Yeah.
errands with
Uh,
these
Yeah.
quite crazy amounts of interest on appliances and
right.
electronics, or these furniture stores that charge this crazy amount of interest, or these buy here and pay here car dealerships. Just
Mm-hmm.
it's just insane that you can't really pull yourself out of it, because you're constantly being placed in the same position over and over and over again. And you have the government that's allowing these things to happen, or even being party to it most of the time.
Right.
Um, it just it's insane. It really is insane. I don't even know what else to say about it.
Well, it's like what Dr. Claude Anderson said. Dr. Claude Anderson of the Harvard Institute in Powernomics. He said that we're in a real life monopoly game that we're neither playing nor winning.
Very true. I would agree with that. I think that's very true. In
And
the Black,
honestly, don't. Oh, go ahead.
no,
The
go ahead,
only
Justin.
difference is that in Monopoly, everybody gets the same amount of money to start.
That's the
True.
only difference. We never got
Now
our,
that's a major difference. That's a major
Right,
difference. If you
that,
start
that's
off
why
on the same playing field, you know,
right.
in life there is luck. There's choice. There's
Hmm.
meeting someone who has some kind of fortuitous impact on your life. That you randomly become into contact with based on where you're born, where you grew up, who you are.
Hmm.
But if you're starting the game with $2 and somebody's starting with 2 million, it's going to be really hard to catch up to them or to even
Right.
live. And if the standard of living in society is based on, well, everybody's pretty much doing cool, because people with money they can't even relate to somebody who
No.
has $2. That's
Oh
not
yeah.
their world,
It's
you
it's
know.
funny you say that, because she says that in the book. She said there were two groups that did not rely on consumer credit in post-war America, and that was the very wealthy and the poor Black population. The wealthy because they didn't need it, and the Blacks that desperately needed but were basically excluded from the club.
Excluded from the club. I mean, that's wow.
I
Mhm.
think in some ways the wealthy even look down upon it, like when you're poor, when you don't have money, like you did something to deserve to be poor.
Oh
Right.
yeah,
Like
there's
it's your
It
fault. It's your fault you're poor.
that,
It's
because they'll say
right.
definitely your
like,
fault.
my parents worked hard. You know what I mean? My parents worked hard, and that's why we have all this. And so if you
Hmm.
don't have anything, then obviously somebody in your family wasn't working or wasn't
Right.
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's your
Victim
fault.
of
That's
your
on
own
you.
Right.
circumstance.
But they're so used to like inheritance, or it doesn't have to be money. It could be a home. You've
Right.
inherited this home, and then and then the family sells it and everybody gets their cut or whatever. It's so common that they don't even realize that makes a difference. It makes a difference.
That's true. She talks about that in the book as well, that about that particular attitude that white people have, that the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but not looking at the systemic issues that continue
Right.
to keep
Like your
us
shoelaces are broken.
Yeah.
right, right,
Yeah.
or
Right.
no,
Your boots
not
won't
just
stay
broken.
tied.
The shoelaces might be tied around your neck. You
Yeah.
know, I'm
They
just
got
saying.
Velcro. They got
Yeah,
Velcro.
yeah.
They ain't got yeah, man. That shit is
You know what?
crazy.
Here's the thing, and this is something that, and this is why people have to be open minded and do their own research. And it's like if you had if the shoes on the other feet, if we colonized Europe and brought them to a country and took away everything from them just as we had everything taken away, and if we told them that, they would be making the same excuses. The question is, with that being said, how aware are white people of that?
Not at all.
Okay, that's the point I was
Not
getting
at
to.
all. Right. Not at all.
Are we talking about? Are we talking about? Are we talking about middle class white people? Are we talking about poor white people? Are we talking about wealthy
I'm
Anaheim,
white
talking
people?
about all of
Because
them.
no,
I'm
Anaheim,
talking
these
about
people.
all of them.
I think these people who run these institutions are very clear on things that are happening.
Yeah, but they don't. But I'm going to tell you, there's a fundamental thing that they don't believe, and they don't believe that if the roles were reversed, if white people, the ones that were slaves at one point and had everything taken from them and all that, they believe they'd be in a better position at this point in time than black people are in, because they believe they are fundamentally smarter and harder workers,
Superior.
and
Superior.
that's, I mean, they just believe they're better, period. So even if they had found, white people had found themselves in that situation, they believe that at this point they wouldn't be in the position that black people are in, because they're just, it wouldn't happen to them. They would have been able to pull themselves up because they feel that it's possible for them.
Every time white people, like that statement always is funny to me when, like, racist white people generalize that, yeah, we're hard workers. Why did you have to go to two different peoples to 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 man your land? If that's the case, you would have did it yourself. You used the Native Americans and you used us. So where's the hard work at? You sat back and sipped tea. Get out. But no.
Right.
And the thing is also, it's not just whites that don't know it. It's blacks that don't know. It's a lot of blacks. It's a lot of us that don't know about the systemic racism going on. Or if we know, we get a gist of it, but we don't understand it because everybody's too busy trying to individually pull themselves up by their bootstraps, individually worry about what they have going on. But if we don't talk to this person, and understand, okay, well, this is kind of crazy. Did they charge the same amount for this person who's not of our color? And we realizing, like, we don't realize these things are going on because we're just thinking, oh, it's because of my credit. Oh, it's because it is.
Perish for the lack of knowledge, not because knowledge isn't available, but because we refuse to acquire it. And that's the problem. That's the problem for our people. Really, for everybody that doesn't know any better, they don't do research. But specifically for black people, that is our problem in regards to not being aware of systemic racism.
Right. Or being
But
aware of it, but still, like she's talking about in the book, when you have uh these black leaders that disagree on how to move forward or how to get us to a point where we can have some type of power. In the book, she's talking about how you had I'm gonna just use our terms when they're talking about the difference between the bougie people and the poor black people, and how they felt like they were looking down on the poor Black people because they had established themselves, and how they were more so aligning themselves with these white institutions, but not really understanding uh, what was happening with people in the Black community, or even caring. Because it's like, once I've arrived, I did what I needed to do to get to this point. You need to do what you need to do to get to where I'm at, but I don't want to help you accomplish that type attitude. Like, I'm there, it's not my problem anymore.
Because they look at it as if no one helped me, so why should I help you? But we have to understand the importance of meeting people where they are. And here's another thing, because if you like myself have had any conversations with Black people that don't have the average, here's the thing: you grew up in, for those of us that grew up in the quote, that grew up in the hood, we know the Black people that didn't grow up there didn't have, for the most part, the same upbringing as we did, even if they
Mhm.
had family members or were connected. So a lot of opportunities they got by being in better neighborhoods and going better schools, other people didn't get. And it's very important that people be open-minded enough to understand that, and that's the problem. People aren't open-minded enough and aren't willing to be flexible enough to understand it. It's one thing to not know. It's another thing if you're just simply not. If you're willing to know something, help is always available. If you're not willing to know something, help is never available.
Right. Yeah, I was looking at what she wrote when Dr. King was talking about, and I think we touched on this before when we talked about, people are worried, Black people are worried about competition between each other. And he was stressing for cooperative economics programs, and said, we are anxious to demonstrate that cooperation rather than competition is the way to meet problems. And I think that a lot of times we don't understand that either, because of this deep rooted jealousy uh, that has been implanted in us since slavery. When Jessica was talking about the Willie Lynch, Breaking the Curse of Willie Lynch, we read earlier. And
Right.
also this distrust that has come about because there have been Black people that have exploited their brothers and sisters in their goals to get to the top. So there are a lot of internal issues that we have as well, that's keeping us from essentially working together.
I mean, I agree. I've been in looking like cumulatively at the books we've read. I think I think almost like it's a really amazing master plan, because it seems like what we were hearing was like there was all of this progress in the 20s and 30s with the Black banks starting and the people working and doing their businesses based out of slavery, and getting things popping, and the Black Wall Street, all that stuff. And then it's like they start developing these organizations to get permission to basically lock us in ghettos, right?
Hmm.
And then we can't get home loans, and they're getting their credit, and the white people are moving to the suburbs, and they're bifurcating our communities and building the freeways through them. And then all of it works together, because then they said, as we become more, the population rises in these ghettos. And then, they gave the example of Harlem that was just thriving. I mean, we've all heard about that with the writers there, Zora Neale Hurston and Langston Hughes and all the artists. And then by the 50s, they say it's rat infested and dilapidated, and there's a raging tuberculosis problem. So it's like,
Hmm.
and drug addiction and so forth, et cetera. So it does seem like a calculated plan in terms of,
Hmm.
it seems like the Blacks are making a move. Let's go ahead and lock them down even further. And that's what they do during the 50s, 40s, 50s. They started locking us down. And then you have civil rights, you have Black pride, you have Black is beautiful, you have women wearing afros, and you have some, I think, strategically placed Blacks to make it look like they're going to make a change. And then, affirmative action, things like that. And then they come for us with the crack in the
Hmm.
80s. and the arresting because the young Black men are now selling it. So now you have the nice bonus of drug addicted parents and young Black men being arrested for selling drugs. So I agree to some extent with DeAndre in terms of we need to look for our own information and be informed, but we also have to realize to kind of like almost not be as hard on ourselves in some ways, because there is a full scale attack going on that
Right.
I think is very well thought out. I think it's very well planned out on every level. It's not just economic attack. It's an attack on your sense of self,
Francesca,
your ability to be
Francesca,
um, successful or intelligent or go to college. It's these GRE tests, it's these standardized tests, it's money to go to school. It's we're gonna put only white people in, a couple Asians and maybe one a Latino on TV so that you don't feel like you're attractive. I mean, it's a full scale attack that does not seem to be letting up. And I mean, when I saw the rise in the violence and the random police violence, that's now to me the new thing in the 2000s with the Black Lives Matter movement, which I'm conflicted about. You know, it's just kind of like, I feel like whatever we're gonna do has to be done silently.
Definitely.
I feel like it has to be done silently because, you know, because they're not gonna stop, because whatever their issue is that hasn't fully been revealed, it's not right, whatever it is.
It definitely has to be done silently. So I don't know about you all, but I've never browsed YouTube or any video streaming website where I saw Klansmen, where I saw any white supremacists talking amongst each other, the issues and problems and what they're planning and plotting and strategizing. They're doing it in silence.
Right.
So if they're doing it in silence, we have to do what we have to do in silence.
That's true. I actually was telling Nandi I just actually watched the movie Black Klansman and was watching how they communicated with each other. They didn't even refer to themselves as Klan members. They referred to it as the organization, right? So someone listening in on a conversation wouldn't know that that's what they were, you know, really referring to. And they had all their private meetings, their private events. So yeah, it was one of those situations um where you think about how often are they infiltrated as opposed to how often our movements are infiltrated. And we see that saw that with the Black Panther movement.
Right.
Um and I think that you're right. Because of that, essentially we need to move in silence.
Well, for starters, they have the system on their side.
Hmm.
So we can honestly say that they have the system on their side. The next thing, and I just lost my train of thought, but I was gonna say the next thing is this. Oh, this rarely happens. I just lost my train of thought. Hold on. Move on.
He said this rarely happens. But while we were talking about the whole banking situation, we were talking about the last time we were discussing the Greenwood bank, and I found this article that just popped up on my timeline, and it talks about the Atlanta Hawks had announced on Thursday that they were refinancing a construction loan for the Emory Sports Medicine Complex and only utilizing a network of Black owned banks. And it's a $35 million loan. And it's the first time a professional sports franchise has underwritten a significant loan using Black bank credit. So,
Nice.
and the National Black Bank Foundation, which is a newly formed group, is the one that helped to broker the deal. So, I think that's interesting that something of that magnitude is taking place. But we all know, like when you're from Georgia, um, that the Hawks franchise is a huge advocate of pro-black uh, pro-black movements, pro-black businesses, um, and all of that, most aggressively so than other organizations. Um, but I think that was pretty huge, pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Hmm.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, he said, so wrestler says, the way we try to run the Atlanta Hawks, we're trying to win basketball games. So let there be no confusion. We're trying to run a first class organization. But he said 80% of NBA players are African American. We're trying to do business with our community. We're trying to be a force of good in the community. We're trying to help Black economic empowerment in our community. And we think that's what good business is all about.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
I thought that was pretty cool. I just wanted to share that.
That is pretty cool. That is cool. I like that. I would like to see more ownership. I hope that that's what I would put my positive shout out of energy toward, more ownership within the Black players, owning basketball franchises and being more
Hmm.
head coaches and being more in a power position, since we are the artists of the game. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Black players, that's a Black basketball is a field where we do, I think, a sport. My brother was saying that the other day. We dominated. Black men
Hmm.
dominate basketball. That's just hands down. And it would be
Sports period.
wonderful if that kind of talent and money could burgeon into something that spills over into Black communities. And
Hmm.
not just as, it's fine too to teach, have sports camps and things like that. But I think if we could funnel our money into educating ourselves more on
Right.
a, I know there must be programs that do that, of course, right? But I mean on a larger scale, to where we're just kind of more informed and getting a better education, because I feel like the system was easier to infiltrate even away in terms of universities and education. I feel like 20 years ago than now.
Hmm. Right.
Prices
That's
have
very true.
gotten crazy ridiculous. And now they've got all these fake schools, these online things and these things that aren't real institutions of learning. But you can get some little degree and think that you got something, and it's not really worth much. And I'm
Right.
not saying college education is the only way, but for people of color, I mean, at least it gives you an opening, because they got, unless you got a hookup or you get lucky or you just have some crazy talent of creating something, I do think it's harder. And if you don't have anything behind you, you know,
Right. That's very true. That's very true.
I
Yeah, I
think
think there are a lot of places that have fed on our quest for knowledge and wanting to be able to level the playing field with education. There are a lot of diploma mills that have popped up that target
Mhm.
Black people as well as institutions. We saw what happened with what was that, interactive college of technology, and how they basically, the for-profit institutions essentially are the ones that prey on
Mhm.
minorities, and then you have an institution that collapses and you basically have a degree that's worthless, but you still have these student loans that have to be paid.
Right.
um so yeah, that's just very unfortunate.
So the train of thought did come back, but we ain't talking about that right now. But I'll
No,
still.
no, no, it's that's fine, we go ahead.
So as you were saying, moving in silence, you know that seminars and they have workshops given to teach people that teach the people that's being trained up in white supremacy how to lynch us. Because I told you I picked up a book. I was at one of the bookstores. It was the day I sent you the book regarding Black women and Black marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just one of the books I was sitting down looking inside, and I saw the video, not the video, but the pictures that are being shared, and it showed many of the people of the neo-Nazis sitting down with guns and shooting in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, they have training camps, they've had them forever. Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm saying. That's why I brought up the point about learning the martial arts.
Mhm.
Because I understand street fighting, but it's like if you try to fight someone with what you've learned in the street versus what they've learned training, especially from black belt or world-class martial artists, or just people that are just skilled at that particular craft. You'll be lucky to be alive after you're done with that fight.
I mean, you'd be lucky to be alive anyway because they're probably just gonna shoot you. I don't
Right.
see them engaging.
I mean, that,
No, I'm just saying. It just made me think about what we were talking about earlier with how they were attacking the protesters. Like they were shooting at them essentially. They were shooting
rubber
at them.
bullet.
One of them got shot. They're stabbing people. So yeah, they come out heavily armed. They come out with the bulletproof vest. They come out, with the full gear or whatever. And it's not just learning, hand to hand combat. It's actually learning how to survive. Like what types of plants you can eat, what foods can you grow, on your own, how to hunt, um,
Yeah.
type thing. So they learn all of that being brought up, and we're already behind. Most of us are behind um the curve on that. Well, I mean, essentially, unless you're raised in the country, it's a lot of things that you are aware of. But I didn't eat it, but my family, they had rabbits and squirrels and things like that. So,
Respect.
my uncle's out hunting deer with a crossbow and going fishing every weekend. But it's essentially skills that our families don't have right now because they're too occupied with on their phones with social media and don't really care to know.
My nieces and nephews they aren't even 5 years old. They know how to work those phones. But
Right. Nandi, what were you laughing about?
I'm laughing about she talking about they don't know how to those skills, but they know how to work that social media.
Right. They
Right?
don't know anything else. Can't boil a pot of water, but they know how to navigate through the phone.
Right. It's funny, I think it's almost like I mean, this might seem like kind of a silly analogy, but it just came to my mind, so I'll share it. But so my name has always been, ever since I've been a little girl, everyone like, and we have a substitute teacher, they go through the roll call, I'd always feel it coming, Nandi Pointer, say it's Nandi, and so throughout my life, that's just been, like the thing. Whenever I meet people, especially in particular white people, they mispronounce my name. And so it's become like a clue for me, right? If I've told people 2 or 3 times how to say my name, and they keep getting it wrong, it becomes like a little clue to me that like this person has some kind of issue. You know
They
what I
don't care
mean?
to learn it.
I can always tell. It's like, because you can't say my name. And
Mhm.
so sometimes I'll just give up, right? Because they keep doing it. And I don't want to seem like I'm tense. So I'll just kind of be like, okay, they can't get it, whatever. And then it might seem like a funny analogy, but I was watching the movie Mulan last night. And she's, impersonating a male soldier because her dad told her to quell her chi because the whole role of women and all that, they can't fight. And so she ends up almost basically getting killed by this witch. But when she comes back to life, it's like now she's her true self, right? She takes off the man. She's been trying to pretend like she's a guy. She takes off the binding thing for her breasts and she has her hair down. Now she's a Mulan. And so I was thinking about that when I saw the woman today, and she called me Nandi. Hi, Nandi. And so I just said again, it's Nandi. And it's kind of like, in a way, I feel like it correlates with racism and kind of like your sense of self and standing up, always being willing to be like, it's okay if I have to make you uncomfortable because this is who I am. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm Nandi. I'm not Nandi.
Mhm.
That's not who I am. And so it can seem like
You should start mispronouncing their name.
I know, but it's almost like taking on the trait of the oppressor. Like, I don't want to be how they are. And I think
Right.
that's the whole for Black people. We don't want to hurt other people or subjugate someone or lynch someone or have a lynching class. We don't want to, that's not our spirit, as a
Right.
whole, I think. I really don't.
Right.
And so for me, it's like, I don't need to do that, but I do need to like constantly just be true to myself.
Yeah.
Not be
I
scared of
agree.
making someone uncomfortable.
You know, and it's so funny when you start talking about that because I was just thinking about all of my experiences with how my name has always been mispronounced. And I think I made a post when I first moved here and started working here last year, and I said I love Saudi Arabia because all of the Saudi people get my name correct on the first try.
Uh-huh.
On the first try. No one has ever, not my students, not the Uber drivers, not anyone
Uh-huh.
else that I've come into contact with in Saudi has mispronounced my name.
Right.
You know, and I was saying I love the fact that I have the Latifas in class, the Fatimas,
Right.
the Sukanas, like that is is awesome to me. It really is. But it just goes to show they don't care. Those the white counterparts, they don't care to say it correctly. They don't
Right.
care to practice
Right.
to be able to say
Right.
your name. They just don't.
Right. Right.
You all, I'm finna get ready to bounce. I gotta go for my run. The weather's too nice not for me not to do it.
Oh, nice. Get that
Cool,
exercise
cool.
in. I
Yeah, I
need to
see
get
you
my
at my
butt
favorite
back to
place,
running.
the
Where,
Starbucks at Kroger.
yeah. You noticed the ice machine was making noise and I had to mute out, right?
That's my favorite little spot. I love going there to get my coffee.
Oh,
I'll be
nice.
there when I get back.
I have to get away because I'm the fried chicken smells so good over there, and I told you that I no longer eat it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's funny.
you go ahead and get out of here. But
I
be
I
all
mean, yeah, we're probably gonna end anyway because I really don't have anything else to add. Jessica's being a
Yeah.
little bit quiet. I don't
Yeah.
know if she.
I would just say
I'm here.
for everyone that will be on next week, just be prepared. Some things are going to be very interesting, and here are some questions to consider. What are some pros and cons to integration? And was integration more of an asset than a liability for Black people? Those are two questions, two of a few questions to consider. Don't answer them right now. We'll answer them next week.
Okay.
So I see you all
Cool.
next week.
But make sure
All
you
right, stay safe.
send me any suggestions because since we're almost to the end of this book, I'm gonna go ahead and start taking suggestions now for some uplifting books from
Okay.
Black culture that we can read and take a break from this.
Such a
So
social injustice.
yeah, so you can post it in post it in the our on our Facebook page.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't have anything else, ladies.
All
I
right.
know
I'll see you.
DeAndre will be on deck for next week, so let's make sure we get ready for his Harvard lecture.
Okay.
Um, I
Okay,
missed it last
before.
time, but I'm looking forward to this time.
Oh yeah, you get ready. He probably gonna have video links and the whole nine, PowerPoints. It's not a game. Have your notes ready.
Right,
Get notes ready. I'll be in a better mood.
right. All right. Well, have a good night, Nandi, or
You
should I say
too.
Nandy? Nandy.
Oh,
Girl,
no.
I be going crazy too. It drives me crazy too. But yeah, have a good night, Nandi. And Jessica, see you next week
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
All right.
All right, bye.
Make sure you bring your pen and pad so you can match names to faces too.
I'm done. I got Nandi's name and face down. She can help me with that. That's all that matters.
All right. Good night. Good night,
Okay,
Nandi.
bye.
Have a
Bye.
great rest of
Bye.
your day, Jessica. Bye,
Okay.
ladies.
You
Bye.
too.